What kind of economic systems are best at allowing us to exercise the fact that we are created in the image and likeness of God?
Now keep in mind that if you take tiny steps towards any goal, it's just a matter of when you're going to reach it.
Scarcity is the first lesson of economics. Now, the first lesson of politics is to forget the first lesson of economics.
If you don't provide real, actual value to people in exchange for the money that you're asking for in return, you will lose over time.
We can see the economy as a social web that God has created for people to serve each other with their work.
We have the Word of God that provides for us a foundation for knowledge, for truth, for beauty, for goodness, for dignity and value in human beings. We have the Word of God that provides for us things like this. Ready? Thou shalt not steal.
Ethics on the legitimacy of wealth and entrepreneurship individually. Secondly, post-millennial eschatology. That is, the kingdom of God expands across the earth before Jesus comes back in final judgment. And the link to get those two together is the idea of the pursuit of self-interest leading to widespread economic growth and social transformation.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Christ in Capital, the show that wants to encourage you to love God, love neighbor, and build something. Oh, okay, that was weird. We are on our way to Atlanta. Zach is back.
What's up?
We're on our way to Atlanta to pick up my sister, but we're running through the Starbucks drive-through. Did this lady tell you her name? No?
I think it was a man. No, it was a female. I don't remember.
All right, we're pulling up to that window.
Do you have your card?
Oh, am I paying?
Am I paying for your drink?
Okay, hold on. I guess, yeah.
Long pause, long pause, long pause.
Long pause. Usually they're pretty quick. You want to play a game?
So, yeah. Dustin, what, why don't you ever eat onions on the first date?
I give up.
Because if you do, after that, you're going to be onion.
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 Okay.
It's an original from
I
yours
know.
truly.
That's how your mind works. I understand.
Yep.
Hey, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. You want a receipt today?
Do you want a receipt?
No.
No, thank you.
No? Here you go.
That's like a drink.
Here you go. Have a great day.
Thank you.
No sweet one.
Oh, I need 4 sweet and low packets.
Yes. I think they may have put it inside already.
Oh, they did?
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Want to taste it real quick?
Sure.
Short.
Yeah.
Yep.
Have a great
Thank you. All right, so on the way, or this morning before we got on the road, we stopped by Chick-fil-A, and we pulled up to the ordering station, to the screen, and the lady comes on and says, what did she say? She said, "Welcome to Chick-fil-A, this is Satan."
Bro. That was close.
And Zach almost couldn't finish the order because we both heard, "Welcome to Chick-fil-A, this is Satan." And we knew we were wrong because it was Chick-fil-A. I mean, Satan cannot work at Chick-fil-A. I mean, that's like, that's God's fast food chain.
Unless he's placing him under his feet right now.
That's correct, yes. Which we will probably get to in our discussion today.
And then we went to Chick-fil-A and got served by Lucy Fur.
No, Starbucks.
I mean, Starbucks.
Yes. Thanks for revealing that this is the second Starbucks I've had in like 2 hours. Okay. All right. Today, we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence.
Ooh.
And automation. But before we do that, did you want to play a game?
Sure.
What game?
I thought you had a game for
No, I don't. I thought we used to listen to the Reformed Pubcast, and they would always play games on their show, and it was really fun. You remember the what was it called?
Saying the same word or whatever.
Yeah. What? Guess what I'm thinking, or something like that. That was a fun game. But we're not gonna play that. Well, he's a Jesus fish. If you're gonna have a Jesus fish on your car, drive well. You got to be a good representative of Christ in the world. Okay, so we are gonna get on the road or on the highway in just a second. It may get a little bit loud, but I think you'll still be able to hear us. Zach, speak up.
All right.
So that everyone can hear. Okay, AI, artificial intelligence, automation.
Don't know game?
Do you have a game?
I'll think of one. Maybe at the beginning of the next section.
Or maybe at the end, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Zach and I read 2 articles about artificial intelligence. The first one was dealing with the key industries that we should expect to see artificial intelligence, improve upon within the next, short while. We're not going to get into a discussion like Elon Musk would get into, or Joe Rogan, where they kind of invoke these apocalyptic Terminator type of imagery, like where artificial intelligence is going to surpass humans in its learning, and it's going to take over humans, and all that stuff. I think that discussion and the risk of that is there, but it's way down the road. Whereas the artificial intelligence that we want to discuss today is more practical. It's more things that are just they're you can see them coming really, really soon. And so, all right, here we go.
I lost my phone.
Can you pull up that article?
You probably can since I'm driving.
It's on your messenger.
Yeah.
Okay. So, one thing that I heard was that PwC. Is that, you know what PwC is? They're like they're a public accounting consulting firm, and they do a lot of like market research.
Yeah.
And they said they are basically predicting that AI, artificial intelligence, by the year 2030 will add $16 trillion to the world's economy. Okay, and that's not like fake dollars. That's like real dollars, like productivity dollars and productivity. Like, which that's another discussion we can have. The more productive a society is, the more wealthy it is. Right? The gap between the amount of effort required for a certain amount of output, that's wealth. Like when you widen that, that's wealth. So they're expecting that AI is going to have a huge impact in the next 20 or 10 years. And so when we think about AI, like we were saying, you can think of like the apocalyptic Terminator kind of stuff, or you can think about how is AI, impacting the world now. Like how is it being brought up? And this one article went through a few key industries, and I'm going to pull it up and kind of talk. Well, first, economists are going to think about AI in a different way than technologists. Technologists and the tech savvy guys are going to think of AI and all the fancy things it will be able to do, like all of the wizardry and all that stuff, all the cool stuff. But economists are going to think of AI in terms of what costs will it reduce. That's the way you're going to think about it. That's the way any economist is going to think about it. What impact is it going to have? Well, it's going to have the impact of reducing costs of something. And so, what does AI reduce the cost of? And ultimately, when it's all boiled down, AI reduces the cost of prediction. Okay? When we think of, for instance, retail stores, demand and supply chain management, the cost of our forecasting and prediction today is inaccurate forecasting. So you got, let's say you have a retail store or a pizza shop, a pizza shop, and you got to order a whole bunch of stuff to satisfy the demand that you think is going to come in the door the next day. Well, you got to be pretty accurate at predicting that stuff, predicting demand, and therefore you can kind of set up your supply chain to get stuff in the door as you need it, rather than having leftover inventory or spoiled ingredients or whatever.
So are you saying the supply and demand of AI is different in that supply for the tech-savvy guys is going to be what will this supply to the consumer, and the economists are going to, what is the demand going to be out of my bank account? Is that what you're saying?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying, like, economists are going to think of it in financial terms, like what, like it's going to reduce, ultimately it's going to reduce the cost of predicting something. One guy I was listening to was saying he used like automated cars as an example, and he basically said, okay, here's what you do when you're trying to develop let's say you develop a robot that is in a warehouse floor, and it can go to shelves and it can pick up stuff and it can say, okay, I'll go to this aisle, I'll pick up this item. That robot is going to operate off of if-then statements. If this, then do this. If this, then do that. And it's taking in certain amounts of information, and it's saying, okay, if row 32, then turn right down the row. If, 300, unit 4, turn right, deploy pitchfork or whatever, lift up. That's the way it's going to operate. But you can never take a vehicle that was developed like that and put it on the road. Okay? You can't do that with like automated cars, for instance, because there's so many variables. It's not you can't just operate off of an if-then kind of format, because there's like millions of variables going on. And so what they do is they say, okay, well, let's boil this down to a prediction problem, and let's have the machine learn how humans react in certain situations. And so what we've done as a society is we've said, okay, we put all of these sensors in cars. You got a camera in the back, you got a camera in the front, you've got radar sensors on the side, LiDAR sensors, all these different sensors. And the machine is going to try to predict, when it comes to this scenario, this whatever variable, it's going to try to predict what decision the human's going to make. Okay? And if it's wrong, it will correct itself. And it'll say, okay, I've got data that says that, if this is the case, then this is what's going to happen. Or this is which way I should turn, or what I should do. And the more data you have doing that, or the more cars you have doing that, it learns. It learns how humans drive. It learns if this is the scenario, if I have a car coming up behind me on the right side and it's blinking its horn or blinking its lights or whatever, people are going to make this decision. And the more data you have, doing that, the more vehicles you have doing that, the better it's going to get at predicting what humans do, the decisions humans make. And so that's what all these cars are doing. So like Ford's cars and Tesla and all these different things. Right now, I think maybe even your car. Well, maybe not your car.
My car's not smart.
The new one, the
Camry.
The Camry. Does it have like assisted driving or assisted? What's it called? I'm not
rich enough for that.
No. A lot of the like regular Ford cars have assisted driving, where if like you're veering too far to the right or you get too close to one of the lines, it will actually correct you.
Yeah, no. The best that mine has, it tells you your tire pressure.
That's alright. My car doesn't even have that. So. But these cars, all of these cars are learning. They're taking in that data and they're learning. It's Topgolf.
Yeah.
Anyways, it's learning. It's learning how to drive, and soon we will have automated cars that know how to drive, and it will be safer. It'll be safer to have automated cars on the road than it will be having human drivers. But it's reducing. Coming back to the idea of reducing the cost of prediction. The automated cars, as they get better at predicting, you have less accidents, less incidents of whatever. And in the end, hopefully, you're going to have less accidents by automated cars on the road than you have with like manual drivers. But that's kind of what AI does. AI is a system or a technological field where machines learn how to do something, and ultimately they're going to be able to predict from data that we know. They'll be able to predict things that we don't know because of the way. And there's lots of iffy kind of scary things that you can imagine how this can go, but we're not going to get into that discussion. We're just talking about economic impact. So this article brought up a couple key industries, and the first one was healthcare. Do you remember what was in that one?
If you start, I don't remember, but
one of them was for healthcare, robotic surgeons, robotic surgery.
So they kind of have that now, but there's someone on the other end of it moving like a claw machine.
Yeah. Wait, what? like the teddy bear? I mean, like the.
Well, I mean, it's not like it's robots.
Can you imagine?
Someone,
you press the button, it goes. Beep, 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 beep.
Oh, missed it.
Oh, missed it.
Pick it up.
A kidney. But yeah, it was
operation.
Yeah, so that was one of them. The other ones were predicting the types of treatments that certain people would need based on medical history and all of it, a lot of this big data kind of stuff. The next one was retail and e-commerce. We talked about that one being supply chain management, predicting demand better, which when I was going to say growing up in college. When I was in college, the big thing was just-in-time inventory, where the idea is to get materials to a production floor just in time for them to be needed to use, so you don't have leftover inventories.
Yeah.
But with this whole COVID thing, I think that's going to change a lot, because companies have realized that not having a backlog of a certain amount of inventories really can mess things up.
Yeah.
I think food companies are already have like 3 months or something like that of inventory.
Yeah.
On hand.
Or you get like me ordering a kayak. It's supposed to come in middle of February and you get it at the end of March.
Yeah. By the way, did you get the handles on that thing?
No.
Yeah, that thing was very heavy. Anyways.
Anywho. Food tech,
they talked about artificial intelligence being able to analyze the nutritional contents of like meat and other things like that, so you can properly price them and all this stuff. That one wasn't as fun for me. banking and financial services. So this is right up my alley. We already, excuse me. There's some really cool tech stuff in the financial services industry. For my job, I actually do a lot of data analytics stuff, and there's I don't know what you would call it. It's like a law, a natural law. It's called Benford's Law. Are you familiar? Do you have any idea?
No idea.
So Benford's Law is like basically philosophers and thinkers have determined that there's a way to kind of predict if certain transactions are fraud based on the occurrence of numbers within a transaction balance. So they can say, like, okay, the probability is that a 9 would occur in the hundredths place, or the 100 mark, and a 3 in the 1 mark at the same time is like super low. You should check this transaction out for fraud.
Yeah.
There's like this, like, and that's really simplistic, but that's just a way that we do fraud detection. Which I don't know why I brought that up, because it's not really AI. But one of the things that they talk about in this article was that fraud detection is going to be a big area for AI to kind of learn and kind of robo-advisors was another one, which robo-advisors are basically just robots that tell you based on your risk appetite and your goals and your objectives and stuff like that, what investments you should engage, or what stocks you should buy and things like that. One thing that kind of sat wrong with me in this was it said something like, it said robo-advisors can also analyze your social media activity, emails, and other personal data to identify sectors and companies aligned to your long-term needs and objectives. Like using your social media, like all that data from social media.
How do they know what long-term is, though? Might be something that I want.
Yeah, how
now,
do you
but not in the future.
How do they determine what you want to do with your...
Yeah. Yeah. Let me guide you. Let me tell you where to go.
Yep. And then they talked about insurance, blah, blah, blah. Logistics and transportation. I think the big thing on this one was, again, supply chain management, but also self-driving trucks, delivery vehicles. Which one of the big things that is going to really impact like global prices of products is self-driving of delivery trucks. If you think about it, every single product goes on a truck at some point. And when you think of like economies of scale, so economies of scale is basically the idea that the more volume you have of product, the more fixed costs can be baked into the price of those. I mean, the more the fixed costs can be broken out into the relative cost of each of those items. So like, for instance, if I have a kayak, that I'm having delivered to me, and I put that one kayak on a delivery truck to get delivered to me, if that delivery truck for that delivery costs $1,000, that $1,000 has to be baked into the cost of that one kayak.
Yeah.
Right? So $1,000 added to that kayak. If I put 20 kayaks on that truck, that $1,000 gets broken out into the cost of each of those kayaks. So I only have to increase my price for each of those, pretty not as much. But part of the cost of that delivery, that truck, is the driver's salary, the regulatory requirements that certain truck drivers have to stop at so many times, and they have to on the last, if they've reached their total amount of hours that they're allowed to drive, they have to stop and rest overnight or something like that. So the time, inefficient driving, there's lots of costs that go into truck driving. And so as AI learns and trucks are automated, costs are going to be reduced significantly. And that will trickle down into the products of pretty much everything. So that's going to be a big one. Another one was travel, which I thought that one was kind of, I don't even remember what that. Do you remember what that one was about?
Right, about self-driving trucks.
No, I think it was like travel, like cruise ships, like travel agencies. Real estate was another one. Learning what types of, based on your characteristics and based on your lifestyle or whatever, what matching you up with a certain house that you would like. Entertainment and gaming. Machine learning algorithms are widely being used to study user behavior and becoming more intelligent with time to the extent that they can determine whether a user wants to purchase a product for themselves or gifting purposes, or whether family members have different watching preferences. Netflix. Oh, that brings me to another point. Netflix and Facebook and all these places use AI to recommend like things that you may want to click on or want to watch or whatever. Curious, what does Facebook recommend to you the most? Do you know? Do you have any ideas?
Right now it's wheels and tires because I was just looking at them.
Yep.
Almost every ad is wheels and tires or fishing stuff or I don't know. Oh, something that's weird. I don't know how it did it. So when I just came back from the beach, we were down there and I was with 2 of our family members, and we went to a shop. One of our president had to go get a jacket. He didn't take a jacket, so he had to go buy a jacket. So we're in there, and him and Nick are looking at shoes. The Hey Dude or whatever they're called shoes.
Hey Dude shoes?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're called Hey Dude. Yeah.
Not the
they're like clothy. They're kind
ones?
of like that. They're like clothy on top, and then they've got the bigger bottom.
Hey Dude.
Yeah.
Right.
No one said the name. No one said anything. They were just looking at the shoes. And we get back to the house, and I'm scrolling through Facebook, and Hey Dude shoes pop up on my timeline. I'm like, how? We didn't say them.
But the phone picks up where you were.
Yeah, but it wasn't a shoe store. It was a clothing store that had those. And I mean, maybe someone did say it, and I don't. Do they hear? Do they? It listens. Our phones.
Yeah. Oh yeah. These phones pick up a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
But I agree to it.
Yeah. You mean the Facebook
without me?
policy?
Yeah. Without reading it, I agree to it.
No one wants to read the fine print, but you're agreeing to a lot of stuff that you may not want to agree to. Anyways, that's another discussion. One thing that I think is pretty scary for me is that ever since I've had Facebook, or at least shortly after I got Facebook, maybe a year or 2, Facebook started pitching to me hardcore rock bands. Like I get advertisements for bands all the time, and they're like hardcore bands. I don't know if you listen to it. I interviewed what?
I don't know where I'm going.
Just keep going straight.
Oh yeah, we had 150.
Yeah.
But see, this is Atlanta right there. I'd say 85 South Atlanta area.
Yeah. I interviewed Steven Lauterbach, he's the guy that he does the Despite Popular Belief podcast, but he was in hardcore scene. But Facebook has been pitching this stuff to me, and I don't know why. Like I was never really into that type of stuff, a while back. When it started pitching it to me, other than the fact that maybe it picked up on the fact that I was a drummer. I don't know, but I was always like, why does Facebook think that I like this stuff?
Yeah.
Like, why does it think that?
Yeah. There's another thing.
But sure enough,
you like it.
I like it. Is it teaching me? Like,
yeah.
I really like a lot of hardcore stuff now.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, okay, which came first?
Yeah.
like I don't know.
And this is kind of off topic. Not really. Talking about Facebook and it. No, I think I talked to you about it a while back. It sent me a notification saying, "Hey, Zach, pictures you might be in." I scroll through and facial recognition. I don't know, but I wasn't tagged in the photos or anything.
Yeah.
But they were all pictures with me in it.
Do you use the face recognition? I do.
I mean, I have before. I think on my old phone I had it, but
yeah.
I haven't used it recently.
I use it. Which, just to contrast real quick, the way that the United States does it versus the way that China does it. China forces people to get the facial recognition stuff, whereas we agree to it. They make you like say yes to it. But yeah, it's always collecting data about that. Yeah, which I thought that was interesting. The next thing on the list was, I think this is the last one, manufacturing, which again, supply chain management, predicting demand, machine learning and artificial neural networks are employed to support predictive maintenance of critical industrial equipment. That's pretty neat. Rather than having to shut down for a day, you predict when it needs maintenance, and you do it, after hours or something like that. They also talked about farming. It's crazy. It's crazy to. I had to do a little project about this in college, but John Deere, they have some really high-tech tractors, like farming equipment that are like satellite, or controlled by satellites, and like it can drive itself to certain rows and pick up, harvest certain crops. I'm like, this stuff's pretty high-tech stuff, which again reduces the cost of all that kind of stuff. So that was the end of the article, or that was the kind of the things the article talked about. But in my arena, financial services is just going to get better with AI as it learns how to deal with risk. A huge thing in financial services is risk. Interest rates. A lot of people don't know interest rate. An interest rate is made up of 3 key components. I don't remember exactly all of them, but one of them is a risk factor. Basically, how risky is it that this investment is going to go good, And as AI can learns better how to deal with certain risks, interest rates will get cheaper, which will cause, economic growth to happen more easily, as people can take out more loans and things like that. Small businesses will benefit. There's just so many different ways that AI is going to start affecting how we do, the marketplace thing. What about you? Police office work. Is there any way? What can you think? What can you imagine artificial intelligence doing in the realm of police work in the next 10 years? Or is there any way that you see it being used now? Or not even AI, but kind of like advanced automation?
I don't really know how you get to a point where you have robots doing police work, because then you got to go, who runs them? Is that person who oversees what decisions they make? How strict do you make these robots or whatever make these decisions? I don't think you're ever going to get to an iRobot or something like that, like the movie where these things start taking over. because you have to have something that has discretion.
Moral agency.
Yes, it has to. It's not just based on. Not everybody needs to go to jail,
Right.
or something like that. So
It's not a computer.
Yeah.
It's not a check the box.
Yeah.
Like. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. You gotta. But some people will get kind of iffy about that too. Like, you mean police officers are deciding who goes to jail and who doesn't? Different discussion. But yeah, that's a good point. Like, you have to have moral agency and emotional intelligence and all of this kind of soft skills that robots can't really have.
Yeah. So I don't think you're ever going to get to where robots take over. I was watching this movie while I started it. It was ridiculous. Some people started having superpowers, and what they called Section 8. It was called something 8.
Super 8?
Super 8, yeah. Did you watch
Steven
it?
Spielberg movie. No, I haven't seen it.
It's ridiculous. So like they have these people who had superpowers, and the government tried to shut them down because they were getting too powerful or something.
So like X-Men?
They have they can weld with their fingers and stuff like that.
Okay.
And they had these robots that would fly over, and if someone started running or something that had superpowers, they would be able to tell who had superpowers based off their face and all that. And if they had warrants or whatever, and if they, like the first part I saw, one boy started taking off running, so these robots jumped from these planes that were above them, reading their faces, landed on the ground, and then just shot him for some weird reason. I don't really know why. But I think that is what has molded these movies like that, has made
people scared.
Yeah. Kind of like the movie. What was that movie on Disney Channel? Smart House or whatever. People in the house started going crazy, had a tornado and all that inside of it.
And I've listened to the discussion that Joe Rogan had with Elon Musk a while back, where we're talking about artificial intelligence, and Elon Musk is really. He said it's a very scary thing because of the capabilities that it has. If we accept the idea that that machines are going to be learning, and they're going to be learning at a faster rate, and at some point it'll switch over to where they will be able to learn without human interaction. They can learn without humans, whatever the situation is, and they kind of go rogue, and they can make humans slaves or whatever.
Yeah.
If you don't have, we're going to switch into the biblical discussion, but if you don't have a worldview, if you have a worldview that it's purely materialistic, that's a scary thing.
Yeah.
It is a scary thing. We don't have that worldview.
Thanks everybody for listening to this episode. I cut the episode short at this point just because the full length of the conversation was about an hour and a half or so, and so I thought it would be good to cut it up into two different sections. At this point in the conversation, it kind of took a logical turn. It's kind of a turning point in the discussion, so I thought it was a good point to cut it off at. So stay tuned. We'll release part 2 later on, and we're going to dive into the more philosophical, theological implications of artificial intelligence. So stay tuned.